I've already called the police. Yeah, she actually said that. They're coming to arrest you right now. That's what the HOA president shrieked, mascara streaking down her cheeks, phone shaking in her hand like she was summoning the National Guard. And what crime had I committed? I refused to bulldoze my grandfather's 103-year-old cabin, the one sitting right where it's always been on my own piece of Montana dirt. You think your little FBI badge scares me? My husband's got real connections. You messed with the wrong family. That's her again, nose up, voice quivering, sure the whole world was on her side. Well, lady, you just picked a fight you're gonna regret. I heard the sirens first, 2 sheriff's cruisers barreling up my gravel driveway, red and blue lights bouncing off pine trunks and pickup mirrors. They were here to slap the cuffs on me, the so-called dangerous federal agent terrorizing the upstanding citizens of Whitefish Estates. But in less than a minute, she was about to wish she'd never hit 911. And if you think this only happens in Montana, drop your wildest HOA or Karen story down below and let me know what state you're watching from, because there's no way this breed of crazy is just local. Let me start from this top. How one clipboard-wielding queen tried to rob my family's legacy with a fake smile and a stack of forms. I'm Garrett Blackwood, Senior Special Agent, FBI Cybercrimes Division. 28 years on the job, and after my divorce finally got stamped last spring, I inherited the only thing in this world that ever felt like home, my granddad's hunting cabin on Whitefish Lake. This place is old school, hand-hewn logs, gone silver gray, fieldstone fireplace, big enough to roast a whole deer a dock, where 3 generations of Blackwoods learned how to fish and how to swear. The cabin sits on 2.5 perfect acres every morning. There's mist on the lake air, sharp with pine and wood smoke loons calling across the water. Run your hand along the porch rail and you can feel 100 winters ground smooth in the wood. After 18 months of divorce hell, this was salvation. Real coffee, the kind you make on a wood stove, not whatever sludge they serve in courthouse vending machines, and a creaky floorboard that still sounds like my granddad's voice telling me to stand tall, son. And then the vulture landed. Bryn Ashford. Yep, that's her real name, descended in her spotless BMW tennis outfit, tight enough to be body armor, clipboard clutched like a badge. 3 years in Montana, and she's crowned herself Queen of Whitefish Estates. She came strutting down my dock heels, clicking over the planks like she'd just annexed the property. Agent Blackwood, she announced, eyes flicking over me like she'd just found a stain on her purse. Bryn Ashford, president of the Homeowners Association. Her perfume hit like chemical warfare. She looked my granddad's cabin up and down as if it might infect her. Your property has significant compliance violations that require immediate correction. Violations my family's heritage was now an eyesore. She jabbed her manicured finger at the chinking between logs, my granddad's woodpile, the rusted old Ford pickup. Whitefish Estates maintains strict aesthetic standards, she said, flipping open a packet thick enough to stun an elk. Standards that protect our exclusive character from incompatible elements. That's how she said it, glaring at my flannel. Guess who's the incompatible element? 47 pages, emergency compliance orders, $15,000 in improvements. New roof, professional landscaping, restain the logs, hide the parking. In other words, erase every trace of what makes this place real Montana. She sweetened her voice. This community attracts a certain caliber of resident. Maintaining property values requires sacrifices from those who wish to remain. Then the kicker. You have 15 days to correct these violations. Not 30. Your property poses an immediate threat. 15 days to renovate a house that predates her whole HOA by 85 years. She looked at me with a smile so sharp it could gut a trout. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere else. I kept my voice flat. Old agent habit told her I'd review her requirements. She smiled wider, sure she'd just conquered another problem. As she marched away, the scent of her perfume and her contempt hung in the air. Watching her BMW disappear, I should have known she was about to declare war on everything that mattered to me. I just didn't know yet she'd picked the wrong agent. Bryn wasn't bluffing. 72 hours later, there's a certified letter, final notice of violation stamped in red ink, threatening $500 per day fines, legal fees, a lien on my cabin if I didn't comply, $500 a day for having a log cabin that was here before she was even born. But here's where her arrogance tripped her up. She never checked whether her precious HOA even had authority over my land. While she played dictator, I spent my Saturday in the Flathead County Courthouse combing through boxes of yellowing documents. There it was, buried in a folder marked land patents, 1920 to 1925. My granddad's deed dated 1923. In beautiful old handwriting, said property shall remain in perpetuity under original territorial land grant provisions. In English, my place had grandfathered property rights immune to every HOA regulation, zoning law, or busybody with a clipboard. That's something I learned in the FBI. Always follow the chain of title. But I kept digging. Found the HOA's own incorporation docs from 2019. Right there, black and white pre-existing structures and historic properties are exempt from compliance. Bryn was threatening me with rules that legally didn't touch my land. And she'd just committed extortion. Demanding money through false legal threats is a federal crime. Monday morning, I started talking to neighbors. Mrs. Sterling, 83, sharper than a tack, showed me her violation notice: unauthorized vegetable garden. She'd grown tomatoes in that spot for 15 years. Now suddenly a visual nuisance. Bryn told her, people from your background should know certain activities belong in certain neighborhoods. Mrs. Sterling's hands barely shook as she poured tea, but I saw the pain behind her eyes. Next door, the Morrisons were cited for their kids' swing set. Unapproved playground equipment. 2 years, no complaints, until Bryn decided they didn't fit her vision. Jim Hartley, Navy vet, fined for flying his flag incorrectly. His flagpole too tall for HOA uniformity. The pattern was clear. Bryn targeted the elderly, the working folks, anyone who didn't fit her country club fantasy. Classic predator play: pick off the isolated, wear them down. Then Bryn slipped. She scheduled an emergency HOA meeting Thursday night to vote on enhanced enforcement, but she only invited her supporters. Underestimated us. Wednesday night, my kitchen filled up with neighbors. The air smelled of wood smoke, cookies, and something else: resolve. We laid out all our violation notices. Mrs. Sterling, voice steady: bullies always assume victims will fight alone. I laid out my evidence: grandfathered rights, the exclusion clause, the threats, proof of systematic harassment. Thursday night, Bryn's kangaroo court railroaded my cabin as a public nuisance. 23 minutes done. Bryn's lawyer nodded along, playing the part. But while she played dictator, I'd been building a federal case. Turns out Bryn wasn't new to this. 3 years ago, she ran the same scam in Sacramento. Manufactured violations, forced sales, developer bought out the homes. Same company every time, Pinnacle Development. And the kicker, her husband Marcus Ashford, FBI agent, transferred to Helena, my own division. I couldn't use federal resources for revenge, but I also couldn't ignore the pattern: interstate fraud, organized harassment. So I did it the old-fashioned way: paper patience and a mountain of documentation. Friday morning, Bryn came up my driveway with a county inspector in tow. Surprise inspection. The inspector looked miserable, eyes darting between Bryn and me. He muttered about foundation issues, electrical concerns, all clearly bogus. Then quietly he pulled me aside. She offered me $1,000 to write you up. But your place is solid. I got kids, I won't lie. Attempted bribery of a public official. Bryn had just escalated to a federal felony. The harassment only got wilder: anonymous health department complaints, flyers warning neighbors my cabin was polluting the lake. She was trying to turn the whole community against me. But with every dirty trick, she handed me more evidence. Then she went nuclear. I was in my office when my boss called me in. Blackwood Internal Affairs needs to see you now. Someone had filed a complaint alleging I'd abused FBI resources to intimidate neighbors, complete with evidence and fake witness statements. I was put on administrative leave badge and gun locked away. 30 years of reputation gone in 30 minutes. Driving home, rage humming in my veins, I knew exactly who was behind it. That afternoon, Marcus, the husband, showed up on my dock, awkward as a teenager. Garrett, my wife's been intense about the neighborhood. He had no idea what she'd tried to do to me. I didn't tell him. He deserved better than the storm she was brewing. That evening, Mrs. Sterling called sobbing. Bryn had sent fake federal agents to her door demanding citizenship papers, terrifying an elderly immigrant. Impersonating federal officers, another felony. I collected business cards left behind, obviously fake to any real agent. Bryn was now weaponizing fear and racism to drive people out. By Thursday, I had enough for a federal prosecutor's Christmas list: bribery, conspiracy, impersonation, civil rights violations. Digging deeper, I found Bryn had filed FOIA requests on my personnel files. She was building a dossier for character assassination. Then came the death threat: anonymous text. Federal agents can have accidents around lakes. Stop interfering. domestic terrorism. She'd crossed every line. But here's the twist buried in the HOA bylaws. I found a clause: if 51% of the HOA board changes hands, the original developer can force sales of lakefront properties at assessed value to Pine Summit Development. Not market value pennies on the dollar. Pine Summit paid off the county planning director. The tax assessor even made donations to the sheriff's department. My cabin was the linchpin. They needed it to finish their $50 million resort. Without it, the project died. This wasn't petty harassment. This was organized crime. Bryn was the front, but Pine Summit was pulling the strings: bribery, mail fraud, racketeering. And here's the irony: while they were framing me as a dirty agent, they were committing textbook felonies under the nose of someone who'd spent 3 decades busting these kinds of conspiracies. With Mrs. Sterling's help, she brought a banker's box full of photos, recordings, every letter Bryn ever sent, and Jim Hartley's surveillance expertise. We built a bulletproof case. I set up digital recorders in the community center, mapped out the evidence, called the county prosecutor, a TV reporter, and the Montana Historical Society to get my cabin landmarked, protected by law. Friday night, Bryn made her final mistake. I caught her and 2 Pine Summit goons on night vision planting fake survey markers on my property, breaking into my shed to stash forged documents. I didn't call it in yet. I wanted her to walk into the trap thinking she'd won. Saturday, the community center was packed. Bryn strutted to the podium, PowerPoint ready, surrounded by photos with angry red arrows. She began her speech trashing my name, my cabin, my supposed crimes. That's when the prosecutor interrupted. "Mrs. Ashford, could you explain how those inspection reports were obtained?" Bryn stumbled. She'd just confessed to breaking and entering in front of 200 witnesses. Then she doubled down, shrieking about my abuse of power. I stood up, briefcase in hand, and played the video of her planting evidence. Gasps echoed. Next clip, her breaking into my shed. By now the crowd was turning on her. Sheriff's Deputy Rodriguez stood hand on cuffs. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent." Bryn panicked. "You can't arrest me. My husband's FBI. Marcus, do something." But Marcus, God bless him, stood up, badge showing, voice steady. "Ma'am, if you've committed crimes, your relationship to me doesn't grant immunity." Bryn was arrested on the spot along with the Pine Summit rep. The Historical Society landmarked my cabin and the community erupted in applause. The nightmare was over. 6 months later, the criminal trials were wrapped. Bryn got 8 years. Pine Summit paid millions in restitution. The corrupt county officials lost everything. But the real victory was what came after: the Whitefish Heritage Foundation scholarships for local students, community classes on property rights, annual festivals on my land. The new neighborhood association ran everything above board: real transparency, real democracy. Now every morning I sip my coffee on the dock, watch Mrs. Sterling tend her tomatoes, see Jim's flag flying, the Morrison kids swinging, and I know protecting legacy isn't about clinging to the past. It's about building a future worth the struggle. And as the sun breaks over the lake, I get a text from a stranger in Colorado. Another HOA story, another fight brewing. I smile because beating one criminal conspiracy teaches you how to spot the next. The lake's quiet again, protected not just by law, but by a community that finally learned the difference between authority and tyranny. So here's my question for you. When does a rule become a weapon? Where's the line between protecting a community and letting power turn to poison? Drop your thoughts. Share your stories. Let's talk about what justice looks like where you live.